start with Bryce Miller. Your grade was?
A.
We're in lockstep. I gave Bryce an A.
What? This was the most impressive season out of anyone in the Mariners starting rotation. Could you say that?
Where expectations were compared to what he did at season's end, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody thought Logan Gilbert was going to take this big a jump in 2024, but I'd say people were less surprised that he did it than how much improvement Bryce Miller made from year 1 to year 2.
Like Bryce, like there were still like a tiny bit of bullpen conversation about Bryce into the end of last year when he was getting rocked at the end of the season. They were struggling against the Rangers. His inning total was getting up. It still was a thing. And then all Bryce Miller did this year is come out and then just put up a sub-3 ERA. Bryce Miller put up a sub-3 ERA in 2024. I'm still struggling to wrap my brain around it. He had a sub-3 ERA. Like, in my dreams for Bryce Miller in 2024, if you asked me this preseason, I would have said you were crazy. Like that's why I say most improved, because I didn't think this was going to happen. He took the ball. Like, we're talking about taking the ball every fifth day. This dude, up or down, took the ball every fifth day, pitched every single turn through the rotation, except for his last one, and then put up a sub-3.
Well, except for his last one, but as just about everybody knows, it's about the worst kept secret possible. That was a phantom injury. They just didn't want him pitching in a meaningless game in the last day of in the second to last day of the season when he didn't need to, because that injury they put him on the IL with to end the year was a blister. We can't know for sure if he had a blister or not. I'm going to go on a limb here and say he probably didn't.
They wanted to protect his stat line. That's what they want to do. And he finished with like seven shutout in Houston. Like just unbelievable stuff. Well, here's the stat that blows me away the most about Bryce Miller's season. The only pitchers who threw more innings and had a lower ERA this season than Bryce are Tarek Skubal and Zach Wheeler and Corbin Burns. Is that not crazy?
No, it's crazy. Let's stamp this right now because it's true. Bryce Miller is going to finish in the top 10 of AL Cy Young voting. He's going to. He's not going to win it, but he is going to finish in the top 10. Because when you rank top 10 in ERA, fifth in the American League, behind Skubal, Ronel Blanco, Framber Valdez, Corbin Burns, you're going to finish in the top 10. And the jumps he made this year were remarkable. Last year, part of the reason we had this conversation about will Bryce be a bullpen arm long term is he was only throwing 2 pitches by the end of last year. He didn't really seem to have the comfortability to throw much else. He had ditched a couple pitches late in the year last year. Arsenal wasn't all that stretched out. Again, he was very selective about the pitches he threw. What he did with his splitter in one offseason, paired with the jump in his four-seam fastball, incredible. Guys hit 148 against his splitter. Guys didn't hit it. They just did not hit it. And for a guy that had to figure out how to get lefties out in 2024, had to. He could not come in again and give up a 900 OPS to lefties. Well, he didn't, because his splitter was unreal. The run value on it was 10. And lefties for the year against Bryce Miller put up an OPS that was just over 600. Sorry, to be exact, 663. So not just over 600, but in the 600s. It's really good. Righties, by the way, 512.
I have another declaration for Bryce. So we've now at the end of this year totaled 4 second years of their homegrown talent in the rotation. He had by far the best one of any of them. Maybe not by far. Kirby's second year last year is pretty good. But he had the best one, right? Best second year of anyone homegrown in the Mariners rotation. You think that's true? Yeah.
The jump he had from year 1 to year 2.
Yeah.
Again, we're talking about a guy that had the chance to be a bullpen arm, because back in the offseason, back toward the end of last season, there was still the conversation of, well, Robbie Ray's still in the organization. What happens when he comes back? Somebody's not going to pitch in this rotation. And we said if Bryce didn't have a good first half, seemed like the choice to get moved to the bullpen. Not anymore. He's not going out to the bullpen anymore. There is no chance.
You want another whip stat?
Of course.
This one for Bryce, because Bryce was one of 4 pitchers in Major League Baseball to have a sub-1 whip this year. But it gets better than that. Logan set the record, when we talked about it earlier, set the Mariners' full season record among first starting pitcher. Bryce is third all time. It's 2024 Logan Gilbert, 2014 Felix, and 2024 Bryce Miller. All time in Mariners history.
It's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous. That totally flies under the radar. And I will note this. WHIP is not era adjusted. It does not factor in the league offensive environment. As you could imagine, Lyle, in the steroid era, there weren't many sub-1 WHIPs because guys hit a lot. But still a pretty cool stat.
Really cool stat. You know what else is a cool stat? His 1.89 ERA in the second half. He was good in the first half. He was remarkable in the second half.
How about this? This was, I think, a more impressive second half stat. Like, he notedly struggled on the road this season because he had an ERA over 4 on the road for the totality of the season. Shockingly, Lyle, he pitched well at home, a 1.96 ERA at T-Mobile Park with a 30% strikeout rate, a Cy Young candidate at home. But these second half stats on the road, in fact, bigger sample than second half, like for the final 3 months of the season, on the road, he had a 1.76 ERA.
That's a pretty big turnaround from when he got torched in Kansas City. They blew that big lead. We were talking about how drastic his home road splits were. What a turnaround.
Do you remember that start he had against the Marlins when you and I were freaking out a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. It was just a struggle to pitch away from T-Mobile Park, but if you look at what he did in the second half on the road, you're absolutely right. And I have a similar note down. He was dominant, and it played into his dominant second half. He did it at home and on the road. What this guy's done from year 1 to year 2, in going from having 2 pitches, none of which were all that effective by season's end last year, to having 2 absolutely dominant pitches with the 4-seamer and the splitter, but also having that 2-seamer as well with the sinker. Awesome stuff. Now, just like any pitcher, there are things I'm sure we'd both like to see Bryce improve on next year, as a lot of fans would. I'd love to see him still limit some hard contact. He got better this year, but you're talking about marginally better. For example, his average exit velocity among league ranks went from 10th percentile to 14th percentile. His hard hit rate went from the 26th percentile to the 28th percentile. It would be nice to see him not give up quite as much hard contact in year 3. And it doesn't have to be perfect. We just talked about it with Logan. He's going to finish top 5 in Cy Young voting. He still gets hit hard at times. Bryce doesn't have to be in the 90th percentile of hard hit rate. We're just asking that maybe he's more toward the league average mark. Because if he does that with everything else he's already done, he can take another jump.
I also wonder how Bryce would be if the Mariners try and fix whatever they believe the issue is at T-Mobile Park for hitters this year. How does that affect Bryce? I highlighted his second half road numbers, but that's only half a season, not a full season. Full seasons encompass a lot more and are a better sample size to draw from than half a season. So how would he be impacted by that? You could ask that for the entire Mariners rotation, but for Bryce especially, since he had the biggest difference between home and road out of any Mariner starting pitcher. One more positive thing I'd like to highlight for Bryce that was talked about a lot on Mariners broadcasts. Bryce talked about it a little bit. We've highlighted it on here. But just want to, sort of bring everything full circle here with, I think, his most important secondary pitch. It wasn't his splitter. His splitter was not his most important secondary pitch. It was his knuckle curve. You could, Lyle, draw a correlation line between the start of his insane second half run and Bryce throwing his knuckle curve a lot more. Mm-hmm. He started throwing it a lot right at the end of June, and once July started, Bryce took off, and he was great. He was among the best pitchers in baseball.
Yeah.
So that pitch, which is his highest whiff rate pitch at 38%, is pretty important to his success. Yeah, pretty awesome.
Awesome year, and I can't wait to see what he does in year 3.